friends. Hello out there. Give us all 1 second here. We're just now getting everything all just now clicking on. Jagger Dukes at your service right here. We have making sure everything is working the way it should work. All right, we're good. Okay, so we are good on YouTube, and hello to Twitch. Friends, you are listening live. JR Dukes. Appreciate all my friends popping in. Thanks for all the well wishes, by the way. Feeling much better. Everything is going good. We're going to be joined by one of our friends of the program here very soon. Take a second if you haven't done so already, and please go ahead, introduce yourself. Let us know where you are from, and say hello inside the chat. If you like to join live, at the top of this particular chat, I believe I have it pinned, that the link. You can simply call in. If you like to call in, feel free to do so. If you would like to actually join us by video, you can also do that. So if you're kind of video shy, no problem. Just go ahead and call in. Love to hear comments from you. Today, we're going to be listening to John. Let's see, it's the Jean-Pierre lady. I just call her KJP for short. We're going to listen to this White House presser again and see exactly what comments, if any, she's able to give us pertaining to the attempted assassination this past Saturday concerning former President Donald Trump. And while we're waiting on her, because as you all know, the White House is never on time. Oh, Zach, thanks for joining us, my friend. You were waiting. All right. Well, I'm glad you joined us. Always good to have you in the chat. As I was saying, if they were on time, it'd be great, but they're almost never on time. But we do have their feed pulled up. And, of course, I'm going to introduce you to my friend here who is patiently waiting with us. I'm sure y'all are familiar with Mark. Mark, hello.
Hello.
This is Mark, Sapphire Ridge News. Appreciate you joining us today. Well, how's everything going in your life, my friend?
Very good.
All right. We obviously have, we're just waiting on the White House presser to begin. We're going to see exactly how long it takes for her to get out here and do whatever it is that she does. We'll see how many lies we can spot. If I was younger, maybe we could have a drinking game and take a swig every time she tells a lie, you know? So that's pretty good. Yeah, Zach, I knew you were over in Pennsylvania. Yeah, well, you're only 40 miles from Butler, Pennsylvania. Okay. All right, so you're familiar with the area. Interesting. So y'all excuse me if I have to occasionally cough. I appreciate all the well wishes, by the way. I'm feeling much better than I was, let's just say, last week. So I'm on the mend. Thank God for that. Thank God for our president and for him being looked after this weekend. What a serious, scary situation. And we're going to talk about that while we're waiting for this White House press secretary to show up, if she does show up. For everyone just tuning in, you are at the right place if you're waiting for the White House press secretary to appear sooner or later and give us the update that they have planned for us today. She is almost never on time. However, we are going to go ahead and talk while we're waiting for this presser to begin. And until then, let's go ahead and let's get into what's going on today. As of right now, and obviously today is July 15th, 2024. We're going to talk about the Donald Trump assassination attempt. I was I just happened to be watching live, relaxing, chilling out with my dog in the living room, and I think I was watching, I think it's Right Side Broadcasting. I love their coverage over there. They seem like they follow the president wherever he goes. Very scary, very interesting time, and I will have a lot more to say about it once we're going to go through this presser and probably come back later today. I want to see exactly what time works best, because obviously you have the beginning of the Republican convention coming up. Additionally, one awesome thing that we have going on right now is we are also standing by for the pick of Donald Trump's vice president. Sapphire, it's always good to have you in the chat, as I was saying. So we're waiting to hear who is Donald Trump going to pick for his vice president. Now, we have floated many names. I told you for quite some time that my favorite was simply, anybody want to guess who it was? Of course, it was Dr. Ben
Youngkin.
Carson. I thought at the time, yeah, right. I thought at the time that's who it was going to be. Just to catch everybody up, news is reporting. The news is reporting that Senator Marco Rubio got a call and he was told he was not picked. And the same call was received by North Dakota Governor Doug. What's his name? What's his name? Burgum. Yeah, Doug Burgum. Yeah, he did not receive the good news. He received bad news. And to be honest with you, I never really been a Burgum fan. If I'm being honest with you, his stance on the abortion issue, and again, I don't want to get into the abortion issue. I'm just talking strictly politically. He has one of the nation's most restrictive deals going on right now as far as abortion. And again, I don't want to get into right and wrong, that type of thing. I just want to get into the politics of it. And obviously, Donald Trump is trying to definitely grab the mainstream middle road of this issue. So if he was to pick him, you can imagine the criticism he would receive as a result of that, especially if the nominee for the Democrats becomes Kamala Harris, which I believe it already is Kamala Harris by default. So that basically leaves us. Who do you think is still on the short list? I am going to go ahead before I ask you, Mark, what's your opinion. As you and I discussed earlier, I am happy to see the Virginia governor on that list, that Glenn Youngkin. He is obviously a Republican governor, and he is extremely popular in the state of Virginia. And Virginia is kind of what you call a true purple state. It is generally voted Republican in the presidential elections, but there's no guarantee that would happen, especially this year. And just to back up a little bit, I believe it's actually considered a very likely state to vote for Joe Biden this year. And now, if they're able to put that in play, I'm telling you what, mark my words here. If Donald Trump carries the state of Virginia, Donald Trump will be the next president of the United States. There is no path forward if Joe Biden does not pick up the great state of Virginia. It's just that simple. It's considered a state basically that Joe Biden can pretty well rely on. And if Trump is able to carry Virginia, then he does not have to break what we call that great blue wall in the north. So that's just an interesting way to look at that. I forgot the exact amount of electoral college votes. We'll take a look at that later also. But
he needs 270.
Yeah, he needs 270. The way I see the map right now, I think it's right at 268, 269 that Donald Trump has pretty well secured, because he looks like he's going to handedly hold on to, I should say probably reclaim Arizona, Colorado. He is obviously going to take Georgia, is the pretty solid betting. Here in Florida, I can pretty well assure you Donald Trump has no problems here. I'm telling you, this place here is covered up with Trump everything, everywhere you turn around. Admittedly, I do live out a little bit in the rural side of the Tampa area, but it is pretty solid Trump country, DeSantis country, all the way around the area that I live in. So I think he's very close, and he's got good momentum. And again, if he's able to take the state of Virginia, I think that's fantastic. And I have talked for some time about Trump 2.0. And this is part of this Trump 2.0. Maybe after this assassination attempt, it may be Trump 3.0. He's even more disciplined. He's talking about the fact that he wants to drop some of the rhetoric in the campaign. I don't really think it's going to be up to him. I don't think the other side's going to let up. Again, that's another subject we can get into later. So let me say this. We have Youngkin, who I hope is the pick at this time. I think that is the smartest move. If it wasn't him, it should have been Marco Rubio, but the published reports have essentially stated that Donald Trump, frankly, was worried about litigation. Obviously, the courts have not been very kind to Donald Trump, at least not the lower courts very kind to him, and he just didn't want to get bogged down in yet another potential issue. Additionally, Rubio would have to resign his Senate seat, even though there's a Republican governor. It's just more of a mess, and there's no reason to go through that. I agree with Donald Trump's decision in that regard. But again, I hope it's Youngkin. You still have Scott. There's one or two others that is. I believe JD Vance is. I believe it's going to be between Vance and Youngkin. So
I think
let me
it's
ask
going to be
you. Let me ask you, Mark. What do you think?
I think
Go ahead.
it's going to be Vance. And
Do you?
RSBN gave it away this morning. All the other stations were saying that Vance was picked up by a motorcade. RSBN said he was picked up by the presidential motorcade.
Well, I saw him picked up by the motorcade. It was on one of the news feeds because I have a whole setup here in my little office here, and I basically have the feeds, as much of them as I can monitor, anyways, monitored. And I remember seeing him picked up. However, the caveat they were saying was something to the effect of many of the top contenders are receiving escort to the airport and to the arena there in Wisconsin. So I don't know if that was just something they said to throw it off, or if indeed that is a good sign. But I can agree and can verify that I did see on the news today that JD Vance was picked up. I wouldn't call it necessarily a long motorcade. It looked like one or two vehicles at most, but he was picked up to be taken to the airport. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's interesting because initially a lot of news outlets said that all of the VP picks were picked up by motorcade. But then now here a little bit ago, Rubio and Burgum received a phone call that they're not it. So that means they were not picked up.
Right. I guess this is classic Donald Trump, right? He's a TV personality at a minimum. He loves to. Here we go on the White House, so it should be starting any second. So we're going to obviously put this in full watch mode here, and then at the end we will all talk about it. Be interesting to see how many questions that we can get out of her today. Again, I want to thank Zach for joining us. We'll pick it up at the other end of this.
Bad.
What's going to be bad on it?
You're echoing really bad.
Oh, it's not me, my friend. It's you. Let me mute your thing, and this will help you. I just fixed it for you. It's just the feedback. I'll tell you about it later. Okay, we'll pick you up on just the other second there, Mark. So give me 1 second here. All right, friends. If you're just joining us live, you are watching live. This is a live feed directly from the White House, where the press secretary there, Karine Jean-Pierre, is going to be, hopefully, any second, giving us a press briefing on exactly what's going on. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. Consider doing so because it will help you receive alerts immediately when I do go live. I am planning on another session this afternoon sometime. Hopefully, Mark will be able to be with us and maybe another guest. We have a lot to talk about, obviously, in the wake of this attempted assassination of President Donald Trump. What an amazing, terrible situation this was. Thank God he basically escaped unscathed. Clearly a blessing. Okay, here we are.
Good afternoon, everyone. Okay. So last night, President Biden spoke directly to the American people about the urgent need to come together and lower the temperature in our politics. We must remember that while we may disagree, we are not enemies. We are fellow Americans, and we must stand together. We must stand together in the wake of an attempted assassination on the former president of the United States. Over the past several days, the president has been briefed regularly by key members of his Homeland Security team and senior law enforcement officials, and he has spoken directly to the American people. As President Biden has said, we are thankful the former president is not seriously injured, and President Biden, the First Lady, and the entire White House are keeping him and his family in our prayers. We also extend our deepest condolences to the family of the victim who was killed. Corey was a husband, a father, a volunteer firefighter, and a hero who lost his life shielding his family. Our prayers are with Corey's family during this unimaginable time. The president spoke about an ongoing investigation. And as he said, we do not know the motive of the shooter yet. We don't know his opinions or affiliations. We don't know whether he had help or support or if he communicated with anyone else. Law enforcement professionals are investigating those questions. And we urge that everyone avoid jumping to conclusions. Let the law enforcement professionals do their job. But as President Biden made clear, what we do know is that a former president was shot in a senseless act of violence, and a fellow American was killed while simply exercising his freedom to support the candidate of his choosing. We must not go down this road in America. There's no place in America for this kind of violence ever. We cannot normalize this. Right now, the most important thing we can do is unite against this type of political violence and reject it. That's what the president is going to focus on. As he said last night, while unity is the most elusive of goals right now, nothing is more important than standing together. Now, joining me today to answer your questions is Secretary Mayorkas. Normally would have done a gaggle because the president would have been on the road, but we wanted to make sure that we did this briefing, get it on camera briefing, and also have the secretary here to take any of your questions. So he has been alongside the president and the president's entire team as they work to get the answers for the American people. Secretary Mayorkas, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Karine. Good afternoon. At the very outset, I want to echo what President Biden said last night. Our entire administration is grateful that former President Trump is okay. Our hearts and prayers are with the family of Corey Comprador. We pray for the full and swift recovery of those who were injured on Saturday. We are thankful for the heroic agents of the United States Secret Service who so quickly and bravely responded to the threat at Saturday's campaign event. We unequivocally condemn, in the strongest possible terms, the violence our nation witnessed that day. Such acts are unacceptable in our country and in our democracy. Both President Biden and former President Trump are constantly the subject of threats. We are in a heightened and very dynamic threat environment. The United States Secret Service, we, including the FBI and our other partners across the federal government, take the threats very seriously and adjust security measures as warranted. Maintaining the safety and security of the president, the former president, and their campaign events is one of our most vital priorities. In light of this weekend's events, the president has directed me to work with the Secret Service to provide protection to Robert Kennedy Jr. Both prior to and after the events of this past weekend, the Secret Service enhanced former President Trump's protection based on the evolving nature of threats to the former president and his imminent shift from presumptive nominee to nominee. This includes enhancements related to securing the former president during the Republican National Convention this week. I cannot discuss specifics of the protection or the enhancements made as they involve sensitive tactics and procedures. I can say, however, that personnel and other protective resources, technology, and capabilities have been added. At the RNC, we have steadily increased implementation of significant physical and technical enhancements at every protective venue in support of protectees, including miles of anti-scale fencing, screening technology, and tactical support. We are also leveraging strong relationships across the law enforcement community, including agents and officers from Homeland Security Investigations, the Transportation Security Administration, and state and local law enforcement agencies, all of whom have been deployed at the convention. Since the attempted assassination of former President Trump, we across the government are focused with urgency to understand how it happened. At President Biden's direction, An independent review of the incident will be conducted, one that will examine the Secret Services and other law enforcement actions before, during, and after the shooting to identify the immediate and longer-term corrective actions required to ensure that the no-fail mission of protecting national leaders is most effectively met. The men and women of the Secret Service have one of the most solemn and difficult jobs in government. Their work involves tremendous sacrifice, risk, and bravery. We saw those qualities in action on the stage at this past Saturday's event. With respect to the tragic event of Saturday, the FBI is leading the criminal investigation, which is ongoing. An independent review will be conducted to understand the facts regarding protection of the event and make findings and recommendations accordingly. I will therefore not be able to comment on the facts subject to investigation and review at this time. With that, I will take your questions.
Thank you, Secretary. On that independent review, who will lead that independent review? What is the timeline for how long it will take to understand the failings that happened on Saturday? And will those findings be made public, or at least a summary of those findings be made public?
We are indeed in the process of selecting who will lead the independent review. The findings indeed will be made public. It is very important that we achieve transparency so that the American people have confidence in the work of the review and in its findings and recommendations. And we need to move with swiftness and urgency because this is a security imperative.
Thanks, Mr. Secretary. On that, does the president have confidence in the Secret Service director after Saturday's failures?
I have 100% confidence in the director of the United States Secret Service. I have 100% confidence in the United States Secret Service. And what you saw on stage on Saturday with respect to individuals putting their own lives at risk for the protection of another is exactly what the American public should see every single day. It is what I indeed do.
Thank you, Secretary. Is the Secret Service stretched too thin?
The Secret Service in times like this calls upon other resources and capabilities to handle a campaign of this magnitude. This has been the case each and every presidential campaign. We draw upon resources not only across the federal government, but with state and local law enforcement. And I do intend to speak with members of the Hill with respect to the resources that we need.
And a few House Republicans have suggested that this was an inside job, that this administration or the Secret Service wanted Donald Trump to get shot. There are conspiracy theories proliferating online. How do you feel? How does the rank and file feel when they hear that?
So let me just say this. First of all, that is preposterous, and it is also dangerous to propagate rumors that are so unequivocally false and provocative. And as the president so powerfully said to the entire nation, we have to tamp down the rhetoric in this country. The rhetoric itself creates a threat environment that really is quite dynamic and evolving.
Mr. Secretary, what concerns you about the fact there were witnesses who had identified a gunman on the building? There was local law enforcement assigned to that building, and of course the Secret Service having the overall responsibility. Where do you think a breakdown may have occurred? Is it because you had to rely on local law enforcement, maybe not having the kind of synergy you might need? Where do you see the breakdown with witnesses saying there's a gunman and action not happening fast enough?
There have been statements by many people with respect to what did and did not occur. We're going to let the investigation and the review deliver the factual findings, and we'll act upon those. We rely upon local law enforcement and other assets, resources, and capabilities every day. And we are incredibly proud to do so, and we're incredibly proud of the courageous law enforcement officers upon whom we rely.
In the time that you've been here, the former president has selected JD Vance. What can you tell us about the security for the running mate?
So the United States Secret Service, when a selection is made, will provide the appropriate level of security.
When you say we're in a heightened threat environment, what's the underlying reason for that? What can you tell us more about that?
So this is something that both Director Wray of the FBI and I have communicated publicly, both in hearings and outside the hearing context. The threat landscape is very dynamic, both domestically, with the rise of domestic violent extremism. The rhetoric to which one reporter referred only contributes to that. And of course, we have seen the foreign threat environment increase as well.
Jen.
Thank you. You just said that you have 100% confidence in the Secret Service. Does the president share that confidence? Have you talked to him about it?
I will not speak for the president, but I know as a protectee, he's incredibly.
I'll speak to that when it's my turn.
Hi, Secretary. Thank you. Can you speak to any enhancements to the president's security for his trip to Las Vegas this week and other locations? I mean, how has that changed, if it's changed at all? And I have a second question as well.
So I'm not in a position to share particulars because we do not disclose tactics, techniques, and procedures. But let me say that adjustments have been made to the former president's detail, to the current president's detail, as well as to the vice president's detail.
And with social media companies, I mean, terms like deep state have been one of the most viral terms over the weekend on platforms like X, on Meta. Has there been any outreach to these companies from administration officials to try and stop the disinformation or kind of quell it in any way?
Well, the rhetoric that we hear, we are very mindful of the First Amendment right. That is one of the underpinnings of this country. And so the balance between respecting the First Amendment and actually rhetoric that can be addressed by these social media companies is something that we deal with on an ongoing basis.
Thanks so much. Law enforcement officials tell ABC News that the building where the shooter was on the roof was actually the staging area for the local police tactical team who's watching over the crowd. I understand you can't comment, you have an independent review, but why would the Secret Service not be tasked with overseeing that building with a direct line of sight at the former president?
So once again, I will not comment on specific facts or asserted facts with respect to the subject of the independent investigation, both the review and the FBI's criminal investigation. But remember something, that local law enforcement with whom we work all across the country, including, for example, at national security special events such as the NATO summit that concluded successfully. That is something that we do all the time. It's a very well-defined protocol and regime.
Was the local law enforcement in direct communication in real time with the Secret Service, or was there some sort of breakdown there?
Again, I'm not in a position to speak of particular facts of what did and did not occur on Saturday.
Mr. Secretary, would the president dismiss his Secret Service director if this investigation returns findings of failures by that agency that could have been prevented?
I am not in a position to speculate, nor should I.
How is it that we are now about 48 hours out from this, just shy of that, and we still don't have any information on a motive? Is it that the investigators are withholding any information out of sensitivity to this heightened threat environment that you mentioned, or the political events that are happening right now?
So remember something, that the assailant is deceased. He was shot and killed by the United States Secret Service. The ability to identify a motive is something that in this situation is a result of extensive and intensive investigation. And so it is, in fact, only 48 hours after the tragic events of Saturday. And you will recall, I think, in the very, very tragic shooting in Las Vegas quite a number of years ago, because of the fact that the assailant then was shot and killed, a motive was not identified at all.
Motive there, Mr. Secretary. Are you suggesting
Correct.
that we might never find one?
I'm not suggesting anything. I just cited that as an example of the difficulty in identifying a motive.
And one more, sir. At least 8 Republican lawmakers have blamed President Biden for this. An additional 21 blame Democrats, the left, and the media critical of Trump for driving the rhetoric that led to this outcome. How does the White House respond to that blame coming from some Republican lawmakers?
I will let Karine answer that, but I think the president's comments with respect to the rhetoric that we need to tamp down in this country is
Will that start here at the White House?
is responsive.
Sir?
Yes.
Mr. Secretary, you said that there was a failure here. There's a criminal investigation up and running. What is taking time for the independent investigation to be up and running? And it didn't sound like you were giving a timeline of when that will occur.
We're going to commence the independent review as quickly as possible. We are going to be reaching out very, very shortly to individuals who will hopefully lead that independent review, and I will communicate to those leaders the need for swiftness of action in light of the fact that we are dealing with a security protocol.
But if that's the case, is this like days, weeks? What is your sense of timing of when this review will be up and running, given the security?
Days.
To follow up on that question, you say an independent review, you're reaching out to people who will lead that. Are you talking about people outside of government? Are you committed to somebody who does not work for you or for President Biden to lead this review?
I am committed to going externally of the department and externally of the government so that no question of its independence can be raised.
Thanks, Karine. Secretary, I understand.
If I may, Peter,
Yeah.
it's very important that this independent review have the confidence of the people.
Secretary, can you give us any details at all about what areas this review will be looking at in terms of the failures that happened on Saturday?
I would rather not until this review is underway.
Just quickly, if I may, Secretary, can you fill out any more of the timeline of what local law enforcement knew or didn't know before the shooting? This is in reference to this interview with an individual who said that he saw somebody hauling up the building, and we're still a little unclear on the timeline of how that information was communicated.
I hate to end this session on an answer on a question that I cannot answer, and so perhaps Karine will reach out for another question. Because as I mentioned before, I cannot speak to what did and did not occur. The facts are the subject of an independent review, or will be, and also a criminal investigation is underway.
In that case, is there any progress on hacking into the suspect's cell phones?
Same answer.
So what do you tell them? No.
Thank you for coming to this briefing. You said that you have 100% confidence in the Secret Service. Do you have 100% confidence in Director Cheadle specifically?
Yes.
And Mr. Secretary, since Saturday, has anyone been reassigned or removed from Donald Trump's security detail?
I don't have knowledge of that. I do not believe so.
Okay, last question, Rebecca.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Is the U.S. Secret Service, they're responsible for, of course, protecting a wide variety of events. Are they considering changes to the type of outdoor events that will be coming up in the next, 4 months of campaigning for candidates on both sides?
We are constantly, the Secret Service and the entire community is constantly assessing the threat environment, the threat landscape, and making adjustments accordingly. And so that is a factor in our assessment of the landscape.
Thank you, sir.
What do you tell Americans?
Thank you.
Sir, what do you tell Americans who may feel nervous about going to political rallies now, sir? Any?
Okay, thank you so much, Secretary. Appreciate it. I just have one more thing and then we'll continue. So I want to take a minute to thank Kelly O'Donnell, your outgoing president of the White House Correspondents Association. Kelly, the past year has presented no shortage of news, opportunities, and challenges. You've been a great partner day to day here at the White House, and we've closely worked together on major events, minor logistics and travel, both domestic and foreign. I want this room and the many members of the WHCA to know that you have had a trusted ally, friend, and leader in Kelly O. And you have always advocated heartedly on behalf of your fellow journalists, and we are grateful for your service, and we are relieved you will still be on the beat here at the White House and in the briefing room. It has been a joy, and I've had the opportunity to know you for some time, even before being at the White House, and I really appreciated more personally your guidance, your mentorship in tough times. And so thank you so much, Kelly. And we are also looking forward to working closely with Eugene Daniels, the new president of WHCA, and we congratulate him as well. It has been a joy, and thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right, Zeke, let's go.
Following up on Jenny's question there,
Yeah.
does the president have confidence in the director of the Secret Service?
So a couple of things, yes. So the answer is yes, but I do want to say the director is working hard to examine what happened and to ensure protectees have needed security. And she is committed to cooperate fully with the independent review that the president obviously announced and directed to move forward with just a day or so ago. Everything is moving so quickly. The men and women at the Secret Service have a hard job, as you heard the secretary mention. They work tirelessly every day to protect the president, former presidents, and other people. Their mission is critical, and we need all hands on deck in this moment. Right now, we are focused on getting all the facts so we can get to the bottom of this, of what happened. It is important for the American people to know what happened. That's why the president directed an independent review, direct the independent review, if that's what the president asked for, direct the Secret Service to provide Donald Trump and all other protectees the resources needed to ensure safety, and order the Secret Service to review all security measures for the Republic Convention, which is what you've heard directly from the Secret Service speak to in the past 24 hours or so. But yes, he has confidence.
And does he have confidence in Secretary Mayorkas, obviously, since
Yes.
And does the president have plans, or has he spoken with the family of the man who was killed at the rally?
So you heard me at the top, and you heard the president speak in his Oval Address, and one time before that, obviously, and he gave a heartfelt condolences to Corey's family, and the families obviously who were affected by the horrific shooting on Saturday. And so the president understands loss, obviously, as you all know. He understands what it means to lose someone that you love. Our condolences, our prayers go out to Corey's family. I don't have anything else to add. We want to be really, really mindful and for their privacy, protect and respect their privacy. I just don't have anything else to add to that.
And then lastly, the president last night said it's time for everyone in the political space to tone it down, to cool the political rhetoric. Does the president regret anything that he has said in the course of this campaign about his Republican rival or anybody else in the political space? Does he plan to adjust his rhetoric, or is it just a call for other people to make changes?
So I want to just be very clear, and you know this. I've been asked about anytime there's violence, sadly, that comes up across the country. The president has always spoken out forcefully against violence, always. Political violence has no place in America. You've heard the president say this. He repeated his thoughts in the Oval Address last night. He repeated his thoughts multiple times before then, and obviously throughout his presidency, throughout his entire career. We want to make sure that we are not politicizing this at this moment. It is not a time to do that. We want to make sure that we bring Americans together. When you think about why the president ran in 2020, the cornerstone of his presidency is uniting this country. And he also said that it is okay to have disagreements on agendas. It is okay to have disagreements on character or record, but we cannot have violence in this country. And that is something that he's going to continue to be very, very clear about.
Does he or does he not regret anything that he has said about former President Trump or any of the other political rivals?
What I will say is the president has forcefully spoken out against violence. That is something that he has done over and over again. And he believes that, he feels strongly about the stakes of this campaign. He feels very, very strongly about that. He wants to bring the temperature down. He wants to lower the temperature. It is important that we do that. And it is a moment that we come together. And that is what this president is all about. And he wants to continue to work on uniting this country. That's what he wants to focus on.
follow up on that. Just last week in Michigan, President Biden called Trump a threat to this nation. Should we expect that he will not be calling out Trump with that kind of rhetoric going forward?
So what I will say is that it is important, right? We believe it's important to continue to forcefully speak against any type of political violence. That is what the president believes. And we do not want to politicize this moment. Politicizing this moment is unacceptable. We believe, and the president believe, you heard from him in a very clear statement last night about the importance of uniting this country, the importance of continuing to do so, and that we cannot tear America apart to score political points. We cannot do that. And so we don't want to politicize this moment. We want to unite. We want to continue to focus on that. And that's what the president's going to focus on
So
right
will
now.
his messaging change this week?
His messaging is going to be really clear. He's going to continue to engage with the American people. That's what you're going to see in the next upcoming days, upcoming weeks. Nothing different than what he's done in the last almost 4 years. And lay out his agenda, highlight his agenda. There are differences. There are differences in our agenda and what Republicans believe, right? There are differences. And that is okay. And it is okay to speak to someone's record and someone's character. But we cannot accept violence. We cannot accept that. And so the president's going to continue to do that, highlight his agenda. It's important for the American people to hear directly from him what he has done the last 3.5 years and how he sees the future of this country. That will not change.
Speaking of that agenda, the president told a group of Democratic lawmakers on the phone this weekend that he has been working with experts on some Supreme Court reforms that he will be unveiling at some point in the future. Can you tell us anything about those reforms, when he might unveil them, and what he is seeking to achieve?
I appreciate the question. I'm not going to get ahead of the president, so I don't have anything to share at this time.
He also said in his press conference last week that he is looking at rent caps. What can you tell us about his policy when it comes to rent caps?
Again, I'm going to let the president speak to that when time comes. Thanks, JJ.
To follow up again on the Oval Office address and lowering the temperature,
Yeah.
does the president want to see any concrete actions from former President Donald Trump to show that he too is working to lower the temperature?
I'm going to let the former president speak for himself and move forward with how he wants to move forward with his campaign, with how he sees the country, the future of this country. He has to speak to that. I'm not going to get into that from here.
And is there anything else you can tell us about the call between the president and the former president? What the tone was? Did the race come up at all? Did the former president mention anything about politics, or was it just well wishes?
So, look, I'm going to stick to what we have been able to confirm for all of you. Obviously, the president said this as well, that they spoke on the president said this on Sunday. Yesterday, he spoke with Donald Trump on Saturday. He is sincerely grateful that he is doing well and recovering. He had a good and respectful conversation with him, and that the president and the first lady will continue to keep Mr. Trump and his family in their prayers. I just don't have anything else to add. It was a private conversation, but we were able to confirm to all of you what was put out by the campaign.
Was it a matter of minutes, this phone call? How long was it?
So it happened on Saturday. Don't have a timeline for you. It was a respectful call. It was a good conversation, and the president's going to continue, and the first lady is going to continue to send well wishes.
Does the president feel like this effort to get him to step aside has now fizzled out?
We're not going to politicize this moment. We're just not. The president's going to continue doing what he's been doing for the past couple weeks, for the past 3.5 years, which is going out there, engaging, talking directly to the American people about his record, what he's been able to do on behalf of the American people in the past 3.5 years, the economy, healthcare, continue to expand healthcare, continue to make sure that the wealthy corporate and billionaires are paying their fair share, and make sure that we're building an economy from the bottom up, middle out. That is what the president's going to focus on. We're not going to politicize this moment.
Lastly, we saw reports that he had met with Chuck Schumer over the weekend. Is that true? Anything you can say about that?
So what I can say about that is that I think Chuck Schumer put out a note on that. It was a good meeting, like the senator said, and I'm not going to read out beyond that. And the president is looking forward to continuing to work with Leader Schumer, continuing to work with Leader Jeffries in how we can focus on the American people, do the work that we've been able to do, that historic work, building on unprecedented record. That's the president wants to focus on the American family, the middle class, and that's what I can say about that. Good, Michael. Michael?
Oh, I'm sorry. Senator JD Vance, whom Donald Trump has just picked as his running mate, put out a message on social media Saturday, about 2 hours after the shooting, blaming President Biden's rhetoric for the shooting. In fact, he said that rhetoric led directly to President Trump's attempted assassination. What's your response?
I mean, I've kind of gotten this question in many different ways. I'm not going to politicize this moment. We are not going to politicize this moment. It is wrong to politicize this moment. We have been, very clear on how sick. The president said this word. Saturday's events were sick. It's not acceptable. Political violence is not acceptable. And we have said that over and over and over again. And we will continue to be very clear about this. We need to lower the temperature. That's what we need to do. Lower the temperature and unite the country. That's what this president, that's the cornerstone of his presidency, is uniting the country. That's what he wants to do.
This assassination attempt happened right after the NATO summit, where the president wants to show the world about the American leadership. Are you concerned this incident may damage America's international image?
Look, it's really repeating what the president said. Now's the time to focus on uniting the country. You heard directly from NATO leaders just last week on how they appreciated and respected the president's leadership, especially over the last 2 years, more than 2 years, as we think about the war in Ukraine because of Russia's aggression, as we see what's happening in the Middle East, and in particular NATO. This is a president that has strengthened NATO and helped to expand NATO. And so that's what you saw from the leaders. That's what you heard from the leaders. And that's what you saw from this president, obviously, in his term here at the White House. We're going to continue to hear directly from the president. We got to lower the temperature. We got to unite the country. That's what the president's going to continue to focus on. Okay.
Thank you so much. Have the tragic events of this weekend shifted the president's sense of urgency or position on gun control legislation? And then secondly, there's been a lot of right-wing chatter about the female agents guarding the former president, specifically whether women are up to the job. People are noting that they're smaller, that they weren't able to cover the president. But I mean, this is a talking point that is circulating. So what's your response?
That's ridiculous. To your second question, obviously, it's ridiculous. Wait. No. Not to your question. I understand why you're asking the question. The sentiments coming from that about women and not being able to do the job, that's ridiculous. Just to be really clear about that. And look, you heard from the secretary. These men and women put their lives on the line. What they're doing is brave. And we should not discount that. We should not discount that if it's a man or if it's a woman. And to have that sentiment out there is unfair and it's ridiculous. Now, to step back, there's going to be an independent review here. This is something that the president directed and asked for. We got to get to the bottom of this, of what happened. And the American people deserve an answer. And that's what the president wants to see. And so getting into these types of speculation is just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Yeah. Oh, yes. Look, the president has been obviously a strong advocate on gun control. He has been throughout his career as a senator, as vice president, and now as president. As you know, we were able to get a bipartisan legislation done, the first bipartisan legislation to deal with gun control that we hadn't seen in about 30 years. And the president led on that effort and was able to get that done. There's a lot more work that we need to do. That is on Congress. We have to continue to get Congress to ban assault weapons, for example, and to do a lot more. The president has signed more than 24 executive actions because we understand and he knows that guns are epidemic sadly in our country. It is an epidemic. The number one killer of our children is guns. And that should not be. That should not be. And so the president's going to continue to be steadfast on this. We have the White House Office for Gun Prevention, which the vice president leads on. That is something that was created here in this White House, never existed before. And that shows the president's commitment on dealing with this epidemic. Okay.
And speaking of the Office of Gun Violence Prevention, in the past when there's been, mass shootings or casualty incidents with gun violence, they've sent resources and had folks on the ground. Are there any plans to do that for the folks?
So right now, as you know, it's an FBI investigation, so they got to get to the bottom of it and see what occurred and see what happened and get answers to that. I don't have any information at this time on how the White House Office of Gun Prevention is assisting in the families and obviously the folks who attended. I would have to speak to them directly about that. But we need to get to the bottom of this. That's why there's an independent investigation. That's why we brought the secretary here to answer your questions, to be as transparent as we can be at this time. We got to let the investigation move forward, but it's important to do that. And hopefully we'll have more to share with you on your question. Okay.
Thank you. Is it the White House counsel's view that the Attorney General has the legal authority to appoint special counsels?
Look, if you're speaking to the announcement that came out, I have to refer you to Department of Justice. I don't want to have an opinion from here. Department of Justice is independent. As the president has said, even during his 2020 election, he said that he would want to restore the independence of the Department of Justice. He's done just that. They make the decision on their cases independently. So that's a question that I would have to refer all of that to Department of Justice.
After the president paused his campaign events over the weekend, obviously he didn't go to Texas. Now he's heading to Las Vegas this afternoon. Can you give us a preview of what to expect? Are we anticipating a different tone out on the road than we're used to seeing with the president when he's out on the trail?
So as I mentioned a couple times before, and as the president has said, we have differences in our agenda. We do. What we believe is very different than what Republicans believe and how we see the future of this country. And that is important to have differences. It is important. It is okay to have differences. And so he will talk about each of those differences. It is crucial, though. It is important that we bring the temperature down. That's what the president has said. That's what he wants to see. And, he's going to live through those values. And that's what you're going to see. Talk about his agenda, highlight his agenda. That's what you'll see in the next couple of days. Go ahead, Jackie.
Great. Taking another stab at the question you've answered
Yeah.
Several different ways, but I guess more simply, are we going to continue to hear the president in official events or on the campaign trail use the phrase threat to democracy specifically?
I want to be very clear. The president's always going to denounce violence, forcefully denounce it. He's always been against this throughout his career, throughout the last 4 years. We do not want to politicize this. It's unacceptable to do that. That's what the president has said. It is time to bring this country together, to bring American people together. That's what he wants to see. And so that's where I'm going to leave it. He wants to unite this country. And that is something that he's been saying since 2019.
Be really hard to do, though, if you're trying to make a shift away from what has been the platform of this administration, of his campaign, in that the view is that Trump and the MAGA Republican agenda is a threat to democracy. So how do you get that message across while bringing the temperature down? How is that phrasing going to be replaced? Is it going to be replaced?
Well, look, what I can say is this. We have our differences, and it's okay to have our differences. And it is okay to speak to someone's record, to speak to someone's character. That is the difference of, that is important to be able to do, to show, right, what the American people, what you're all about. We're just going to continue to denounce violence. It is important to do that, forcefully be against violence. Political violence has no place in America. It should not be. It does not have a place here. The president's going to continue to be very, very forceful about that. But we have a difference of agenda. That is the truth. That is the truth. And we're going to continue to speak to that difference. And the president's going to highlight his agenda.
Does the president view Trump's agenda as a threat to democracy?
Look, what I will say is right now we're not going to politicize what happened on Saturday. What happened on Saturday was horrific. It was. It was sick, as the president said. And we got to move forward in the way that we respect each other. That we don't have this type of discourse.
Can you bring us inside the room, though, in a way that you're asking to bring down the temperature and have people consider the language that they use in order to dial back where we're at. So how are those discussions going on inside? Is there reflecting on language that's been used? What example is the president setting for others?
Well, I think the president has set an example on Saturday. No, but we can't also discount what's happened in the past 3 days, right? We can't discount what the president did on Saturday, right? We can't. He spoke to the former president. He was briefed by his team. He addressed the American people the same night, right? Came back to DC. Yesterday, he had another briefing with his team. Right after that briefing, he went into the Roosevelt Room, spoke to the American people, and then used the Oval Office, one of the most important tools to use, important places to give an important address to the American people in prime time on a Sunday. I think that's important. He wanted to make sure that the American people heard directly from him, from the President of the United States, and also wanted to lay out that we should be able to have differences. Violence shouldn't be a part of that, right? He wanted to lay that out and say we have to bring the temperature down. That I feel like those 3 moments that we've seen in the last three days shows how the president is moving forward. It does. And it is lowering the temperature, saying violence has no part in our democracy in America, and saying it is okay to have differences. He also said that. He also said it's okay to have differences. Get Annie.
If we just take Jackie's timeline, the timeline that you just referenced, and move it back to 4 days before today, when the president was in Michigan, he said, over my dead body, it will happen, referring to Trump becoming president. He also said, another 4 years of Trump is deadly serious, deadly serious. And I think that's the type of language that we're referencing here. And yet, would it be possible to get some sort of indication about whether that kind of language is what we'd expect to continue to hear from the president?
So look, what I would refer you to is basically what I told Jackie's the last 3 days, and what the president has said. You heard directly from him what he's laid out, how he sees the future, how it's important to be able to speak to different agendas. It is important to speak to someone's record, someone's character. Violence has no place in America. Political violence is not okay. It is not. It is just not. The president said what we saw on Saturday was sick. I've said this about 3 times. Use that word 3 times in this press briefing. It is not something that we should condone. We have to condemn violence. And that is something that this president has done throughout his career.
And I think we're clear on that. It's just will the language shift from the president, given
What
what
I
you're
will
talking about?
what I will say is you'll hear the president highlight his agenda over the next couple of days. He will continue to do that. He will speak to the importance of the American people understanding the differences of where he stands and where Republicans stand. I got to be mindful here because it is a campaign that we're speaking about. And I think, though, if you look at what the president said, if you heard what the president said the last 3 days, and how he's led this country in this horrific time that we saw coming out of Saturday, I think that's important. And I think that's what the American people want to see. Toning down the rhetoric and condemning violence. I got to wrap it up. Go ahead. I'm being
Karine.
cold.
Yeah, thanks, Karine. So then, given the language from the leader of the free world, how does the president or the administration bear any responsibility for the environment that we're in?
What I will say is, and this is just repetitive of what I'm saying here, we have to lower the temperature. You heard that from the president. There's no place in America for violence. It is important that we are really clear about that. We do not know. We do not have the answers to what happened on Saturday. What we know is a former president was shot. That is not something that should be accepted here, right? That is something that we have to condemn. That's what we know. There are a lot of questions that are still out there. But we have to lower the temperature.
But the president from the Oval Office said we have to look. Yeah, the president from the Oval Office said we have to lower the temperature, but he never said it starts with me.
When it comes to political rhetoric out there, when it comes to being mindful of how we are moving forward with our politics here, it takes all of us to lower that temperature. And I think that's important. That's important to note, right? And I think that's what the American people want to see. They wanted to hear what the president said in the Oval yesterday. They wanted to hear what the president said on Saturday, right? It is important to speak to the moment that we're in and say, we got to condemn this type of violence. We do. Now, there are a lot of open questions here. We don't have answers to those open questions. The independent investigation will be thorough. That's what the president wants to see. We want to get to the bottom of it because there are questions that the American people should know as to what happened, what led to that awful, awful night on Saturday. I have to actually, president is waiting for me, so I have to actually go. I'll see you guys on the road. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. All right. That is the end of the presser by the White House press secretary. And let me clear up our chat right here if I can do that. There we go. All right. And we're going to bring back my friend Mark. Be joining us momentarily. So that was, just to conclude here, that was the White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre. We have watched her many times together. And let's get Mark back on the thing here. There we go. All right, my friend. Well, let me recap real quick, and then I'll get some comments from you on this here. So obviously the White House has a message that they want to send, and I'm interested in what you got to think about, or what you have to say about her particular comments. She kept repeating certain words, certain buzzwords for sure. Good news is, and my question is, why wasn't this done all along? She said President Trump, according to the White House, will receive enhanced security. They are glad that Trump is okay. There's an independent review underway. Again, I'm wondering why he didn't have this enhanced security. And I got a couple more comments to make about that. And for those that are currently with us that do not know, the president has selected Senator from Ohio, JD Vance, as his running mate. So fantastic news on that particular end. The Secretary Mayorkas that was speaking to begin with said that adjustments have been made already to Donald Trump's detail. She also touched on something that I thought was interesting pertaining to some online chatter. This is actually something I started talking about almost right after this event happened last Saturday, and that is what I would call this DEI in the Secret Service. Specifically online, they're referring to it as women in the Secret Service, and I've got a lot to say about this. I'm very concerned, and it's not women. What I'm concerned with is that the best possible person is doing these particular jobs. And when President Trump was almost killed Saturday, they were trying to hurry him down the stage. And if you noticed at some point, they literally were trying to pick him up. And unfortunately for him, there was a female. She's much shorter than the 6'4", 6'2" president that's there. And they were trying to carry him down the stage there. And she had to stop because she frankly could not do that. And to me, that's extremely troubling. Comments on any of this?
Yeah, couple of comments. There was another female Secret Service officer that almost dropped her weapon twice. It's on video.
Yes, I've seen that.
Trying to holster her weapon, and she kept missing the holster. 2 separate times she almost dropped it. That's unpardonable. That should be second nature to holster your weapon.
Yeah, it's really terrifying that they would allow something like that to happen. I mean, when you get right down to it, I do remember that when I was watching the video, the one female that I think is the same woman that was trying to carry the president down the stairs. I remember specifically she had extreme issues even holstering her weapon. She definitely did not look like she was in shape to me. She was clearly overweight. There's no way she was able to lift the president up. And listen, I want to apologize to anybody that's watching us now or later. These videos get a lot of replay. I want to be real clear and say it only one time. I am not a sexist by any stretch of imagination.
Right.
But let's be honest about it. that women can do everything men can do, and I can reverse it, that men can do everything a woman can do. This is ridiculous. There's biological differences God has made each and every one of us with. And if someone wants to argue with me on that, feel free to hit that link and we'll talk about it right now. If I have to, please don't make me, but I can show you a naked picture of a man and a naked picture of a woman, and we can talk about differences. There are differences. If you don't know that, let me educate you.
My issue with it is that Kim Cheadle has pushed hiring 30% more women, not qualified women, just hiring women, that there needs to be
Now,
more
just
women.
1 second. For our viewers that don't know, this Kim Cheadle, she is the current head of the Secret Service, correct? And she's been
Right.
pushing this DEI nonsense that the Biden administration has said has to go forward. And she is the boss, the head of specifically the Secret Service, but she is working for Secretary Mayorkas that we saw at the beginning of that press conference. So go right ahead.
She has also hired YouTube influencers too,
Right.
for protection duty. What? How did you mean?
What's that all about? Do you know?
The video that I watched over the weekend was said that she hired YouTube influencers to be infiltrated in the protection duty to document the daily lives of Secret Service officers. That's out of place.
Yeah,
Because
it's
their job is to protect. It's called protect the body. They used to say protect the candidate, but now they say protect the body. The person they're assigned to, they're to do everything in their power to protect that individual within 1,000 yards.
right.
The shooter was 130 yards away. But
Yeah.
now, today,
It should have been an easy shot. Just for clarity here,
right?
This individual, according to published reports, was a student, a participant in some type of rifle club. And this guy was used to making these types of shots. And my understanding in the sniper community is that a shot at approximately 150 yards is considered an easy shot, is it not?
Right. It is.
Okay. Do you have a finish? Do you need to finish a thought or?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just on the, well, we can get into a separate topic because of what CNN posted. And kudos to Sky News Australia to call them out on incompetence.
Yes. Yeah.
Because they put on
There's a
their
lot to talk
website-
about on that.
Yeah, they put on their website that he fell, and that when he fell, he injured his ear.
Yeah, one of the first reports that came out while this was going on, and again, we're going to talk about this in another stream soon. We're going to dissect this down. CNN's first report, they always cast the President Trump, in the worst light possible. And the first report they put out was essentially that President Trump fell, and in doing so, he injured himself, essentially. And I mean, it gets worse from there, folks. I mean, they did everything they can other than call it for what it is. Listen, when it comes to this situation, and we're, again, to refocus, we're talking about the Secret Service and this DEI nonsense that is going on in the Biden administration. Remember, Biden was the one that was always talking about how that it's important that we include, and they were told specifically by the U.S. Supreme Court affirmative action was illegal and it had to stop. And Biden has always reminded us many times, oh, folks, we need to obey the rule of law. Of course, they say that, but only when it helps what they want things to be or what their particular agenda is. When the Supreme Court said you cannot do this anymore pertaining to affirmative action, they just went ahead and came up with this DEI crap. And in doing so, they hire people based on what we call identity politics. Are you black? Are you white? Or whatever your color is, whatever it has to do with your background. They focus, instead of having the best person to do something, they want something to look good, to look better, to have diversity, inclusion. It's just absolutely insane. And if you want a picture of what that looks like, I got two photos for you. One photo is a picture of Justice Jackson, who currently serves on the U.S. Supreme Court. And the most obvious photo is what you just saw Saturday night, in my humble opinion, involving the Secret Service. What is going on? Again, I watched this live. It is true. Give me 1 second. It is very true that when you hear or you see something like that going on, it is nothing short of surreal, folks. Absolutely surreal. And it's true. Time does stand still. I was like, what is going on? As soon as it happened, I knew what was going on. And then, of course, the president grabbing his ear. And I remember thinking, when he went down, when he fell down right there, I'm like, I can't believe this. They got him. They took him out.
Yeah.
They could not take his money away from him. They could not embarrass him, slander him, humiliate him. They took his photo at the Fulton County Police Station down there. They've tried to take every piece of dignity, take every dollar he's ever made, and pertaining to New York Attorney General, what is her name, Alicia James over there. Everything they can. And of course, they've tried to incarcerate this man, to literally put him in prison. They took him off the ballot in the state of Colorado and in the state of Maine. The Supreme Court had to step in again. Our President Biden, just the other day, said that we have to put a target on the back of Donald Trump. And someone did that. And again, as a result of all this nonsense and all this craziness, it's just by the grace of God that Donald Trump was talking about a poster or some kind of, it was kind of like a diagram that he brought up on one of these huge boards. And if I remember right, he was talking about immigration coming across the border. He just happened to turn his head like this, his neck in some way like this. And instead of the bullet, it was kind of coming from the back, coming in like this. It just, as he turned his head, it just whizzed right by. It clipped his ear. It got his ear.
Actually, there's a good picture that they showed on Fox News this morning.
What is the picture?
It shows the bullet in midair, a foot away from Donald's head, right at the side of his head.
I've seen that. That's in the New York Times. I have seen that.
Just as he turns his head to the right.
Yep.
And instead of hitting him in the side of the head, it hits the top of his ear.
My girlfriend showed me that picture. Give me 1 second. My girlfriend gave me my girlfriend showed me that the other day, and when she first showed me that photo, and you can see the stretch of the bullet. When we actually do an official video on this, I'll make sure that I pull that up so everybody can see that. But it looked fake to me. It looked like one of these AI type photos or something. So I wasn't sure that was even real. But yes, they definitely have that photo. That guy, matter of fact, this is the same gentleman that took those amazing photos of Donald Trump with the flag in the background. Just quickly, Zach, I totally agree with you, my friend. They need to reinstate a minimum height, weight, and physical criteria. Absolutely. Sapphire, go ahead and finish your comment on that, my friend.
I was just going to say, this is the grace and armor of God.
Absolutely. Amen to that.
This is just my viewpoint. It took God to tell him to turn his head at the right moment.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. First of all, I applaud what you just said. You're absolutely 100% right. I am a believer myself, and no one can convince me otherwise that it was nothing short of God's will that happened. To have someone that is a practice, usual sharpshooter like that take a clear aim and effectively a close, easy shot, so to speak, and miss. is just almost unbelievable in and of itself. I mean, it's clear that listen, there is no one man that's a man that's going to save any of us. But I am here to tell you that this man, Donald Trump, is on a mission, and
Yeah.
it's really hard to argue that he's not serving God's purpose somehow, some way for a time such as this. I think that that is very clear and very self-evident. I mean, really, what else can you throw at a man other than the full weight of the United States as far as with lawfare and weaponizing its departments to go after an individual? The individual survive all of that, and then now survive this assassin's bullet. It's just unbelievable what
Right.
has happened on that. Comment?
Something that happened at the RNC this afternoon
Mm-hmm.
when it first got started. Trump had said, when he got up, he said, now we fight, we fight, we fight. At the convention today, when they opened it up and went to the delegates, they all said, now we fight, we fight, we fight.
Mm-hmm.
They have brought us together in a way that I never dreamed possible. You know,
Yeah,
a lot of
the
people are against Nikki Haley,
mm-hmm.
but she cleared out her schedule this week, and she is going to the convention, and she is giving a speech. She's a good speech
Yeah.
giver.
Yeah, and that's kind of remarkable when you think about it that she was even invited to
Right.
that particular speech, because obviously Donald Trump, and I think he has a lot of good reasons for that. Obviously, she did not do like the other candidates did, essentially bow out of the race and endorse him immediately, like Governor Ron DeSantis did. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to come back together as a party. You have a common goal, and you need to make
Right.
sure that you stick together in the face of that. But clearly, um, I would say, listen, Donald Trump has clearly had this experience. It's going to change anybody to have an experience like that. And maybe he has this round of wisdom that says, I'm going to try to calm it down and work with my adversaries effectively for the common good. And we'll see where that goes. Now, I don't think it's
Right.
going to work. I just don't. I think it's going to be around for about another week or so, and then it's going to implode, and that's going to be it. But that doesn't mean that he's wrong for trying. That's just the way that I
Right.
mean, it's just the way that I see that. Well, why not go ahead and try it? I mean, you might as well.
Right. He's
I don't
always,
think I'd much hope for it. Go ahead.
he's always been one to forgive people their trespasses as long as it isn't egregious or what he considers egregious. As long as they call him and say, hey, I'm sorry, things got heated, he forgives them and moves on. Which
Yeah.
last week, this is interesting because last week, Nikki Haley called him and told him that she was pledging all of her delegates to him.
That was a good thing on her part, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, very smart on her. I think it was a little bit too late.
Yeah.
But obviously, that has, that seems like it's changed, at least at this point. I think it's a good idea to give her a spot and
Right.
let her go ahead and make a speech and just see exactly
Yeah.
what she says on that there. But one thing I want to point out is that when I was watching this thing live, don't get me wrong, he got some great photos. I mean, only Donald Trump, right, could come up with those
Right.
type of photos. I mean, that just worked out fantastic for him. But what I don't think people realize is as he's walking off the stage, we did not know what we know now. There could have been a shooter still targeting him. There could have been someone in the crowd ready to shoot at him again. We just didn't know. Yet and by the way, Donald Trump did not know. He simply had his ear blown off. He thought he had a gaping head wound. He did not know. I did
Right.
not know. He
Yep.
stood up and insisted he put on his shoes. He wanted to make sure that if he was going to die, I mean, I've thought about this a while. I
Yeah.
clearly at the time I knew what was going on. In his mind, he was thinking, I'm about to die. And if I die, it's not going to be the last thing people remember about me, is that I went out like a weak, defeated old man that got my head shot off. And his, because there was a lot of people criticizing him, the talking heads as usual, about the fight. And what does this man do? He holds his, his fist up, fight, and got blood on his face. It's just an amazing instinct. What a fighting spirit this man has. I can promise that most men, it's almost like a foxhole type of test, that when you're in that type of situation, you see someone's true colors. And this is the kind of man that did not run because of fear. He was able to control his fear and encourage others. He was not going to allow his final time on this earth to essentially be defined by an assassin's bullet. And he wanted to let everybody know to continue the fight. Don't stop that fight. What do you think? You think that's what he's thinking or not?
I think that's exactly what he's thinking, because this morning he put out a memo, I would call it a memo, stating that he will support every presidential candidate, no matter the age, going forward, to take a neurological test, a cognitive test, he called it.
Yeah, I've heard about that too, Zach. On your comment, you're not negating nothing I've said. I've seen that video, and I believe that is a true report. A police officer did see this guy at the top of the roof. I'm not sure what comment I made about that. What I heard is that the rifleman turned the gunman, let's call him a gunman, turned his gun towards the cop, and the cop went on back down. And then it was shortly after that the sniper started his shooting spree. But you're right on that. I don't affecting his aim. Well, I think that I see what he's saying. He's saying it messed him up because he had to take care of the cop that was there. I don't know. I just don't know. If you're a trained rifle guy and you're already set up, you can go ahead and spin it that way, or spin it back to your back and then put it back. I mean, all you got to do is, I used to hunt when I was younger. I know how to use a scope, and I'm not a sniper, but it's not too difficult if you have the right equipment and it's within the range of the tool, the gun that you're using. You can simply put the crosshair on it, just like you see in the movies. You breathe out and then pull gently. Boom.
Right.
And he hit the president. So he got really close.
He also hit 3 other individuals.
I think what happened with that. No, he did. He did hit 3 others. What I will say is, my bet is he pulled it, realized he didn't take him down, and so he, like that. That's my guess, is what I think that's going to show. But I realize now what Zach's trying to say is that the reason he missed was the cop startled him and messed up his aim, and then he turned around and started shooting. Don't get me wrong. I don't know what I don't know. I do believe that. I do believe that if there had to be some type of divine interference with this. He literally says, "Look," and he was talking about the thing on the screen. He wanted the chart on the screen. He wanted everybody to look at, and he turns his neck like this, and otherwise it would have taken his head out, because it flies right by as he's turning his head. It's kind of like, maybe I could do it from this angle. It's kind of coming. It's going to hit and take off his head like this, and instead he turns his head. Just at the nick of time. Let's put it this way: the bullet was close. Look how close my ear is to my head. And to have that blown off. Wow.
I find this outrageous that the Secret Service actually put out a memo today blaming local law enforcement, stating that where the shooter was at was outside of their security zone, that it was local law enforcement's job to handle that. I'm sorry, no. Your job is to protect the body, meaning protect the person you're assigned to. And you're supposed to have a sniper on the roof above your person. You're also supposed to have a sniper on other roofs. there was 2 sniper teams, both of them above the president.
Yeah, I saw that. I knew they had sniper teams there, and of course now we all see why they are there. Obviously, they're very important, but it's just thank God that he was protected. And a lot of people don't realize this either. Even if he had a graze wound to the head, that could have been fatal had it
Yeah.
actually hit the head. Because I was worried when I saw that blood on his ear. I was thinking, well, okay, people are saying it's a graze wound, but a lot of people don't understand, especially for an elderly man. Don't get me wrong, Donald Trump is strong. He's very healthy, but he's 78 years old. And
Right.
I don't care what your age is, you get a graze wound like that to your scalp, you could cause all kinds of infection issues. If you actually breach the actual head, the cranium right there,
Right.
type of graze, then you got all kinds of potential issues as far as problems with the brain. I mean, you can still be taken out even with a graze wound like that. Is what people have to. You just have to be mindful of all that
All
stuff. And yes,
kinds
the
of ancillary issues. You know, the graze could have caused swelling in the brain. All sorts of bad stuff could have happened.
Yeah.
That fortunately
Yeah, it's
didn't.
yeah. There's no doubt about that. So
It's like
so
I watched Don Jr. give a interview last night. He said he saw it when we saw it. How
Oh yeah,
frightening
well,
is
I'm
that?
sure he was watching with us. Yeah,
You're
yeah, that would
you're out
be
with your
very
family.
scary.
You know, he said I was out with my daughter, being a dad, and he said my phone started blowing up, and he said I started watching, and he said then I called him, and you know, told him that he was glad he was alive. He said then he told him, he said you've always been a fighter, but now you're a badass hero.
Yeah, again, those pictures, only Donald Trump, right? Where he's got his arm raised up
Right.
like that, blood all over him, the
Yeah.
flag in the background. Fantastic, amazing campaign photos. And
Right.
I just thought, wow, that's really amazing. But just when you see those photos, everyone needs to remember at the time those photos were taken, Donald Trump did not know he would survive. He did not know
Right.
the extent of his injuries. He thought he might have had the side of his head blown off. He did not know. He did know he
Right.
had some kind of hole or problem there, and your head obviously is very vascular, and when it's injured, that
Right.
means it's going to bleed. It's going to bleed very, very badly. I used to say bleed like a stuck pig. That's exactly what
Right.
happened. And how about that photo when he's on the ground and the Secret Service is towering over top him at that point? He's looking down. I mean, you just see the blood running on his face. I mean, it's just amazing on that stuff. But I guess we continue on. We'll see where we go to from here. So here's what I want to do. Bear with me 1 second, Mark. I appreciate obviously you joining with us. Before you go, Mark, you want to tell everybody again who you are and how they can reach you, what your YouTube channel is, so they just know.
My YouTube channel is Sapphire Ridge News. I do a video every day on current events and politics.
All right, my friend. Appreciate you joining us. Just stand by with me 1 more second. It's always a pleasure to have you. Friends, I appreciate each and every one of y'all joining me. Zach, always glad to have you in the chat. Rose, thank you for joining. And I hope I don't forget anybody, but I always enjoy seeing Julianne. Thanks for showing up and joining us. And we had a few new people, I believe, in here and a few others. Sometimes I don't see everyone as the chat flies by. But again, I always appreciate the comments, the questions. I have contact numbers below on the screen right there. If you like to reach out, like to make a comment, feel free to do so. Always interested in anything that you may want to know about or any questions that you may have, and I'm happy to answer whatever it is to the best of my abilities. Always like to talk about things pertaining to politics, the law, asset protection, things that involve our day-to-day life that can help you live your best life possible. I'm all about right now stopping and ending indoctrination, helping everybody teach themselves things that are very important for each and every one of us to know. And right now in our lives, without being too dramatic about it or, being rhetorical, it is absolutely the case. Right now, we're facing the most important election in our lifetime. It's really that simple. It's the way we want to live our lives. What kind of life do we want to live? What do we want to leave for our children? Do we want a country that is essentially a socialistic country where everybody is controlled by the state? Not trying to be rhetorical or cause fear. I'm just telling you the policies and the things these people are trying to do. This lawfare, trying to weaponize the government after one person, and it's not just one person. How about the moms and dads that go to these local election boards, and now the FBI has them all branded as potential domestic terrorists? Can you imagine that? Show up at your local PTA meeting, and you're probably going to get a knock from a FBI agent. Absolutely insane, the nonsense that's going on. What is happening right now today is something we all need to make sure we're aware of. And Zach, I'm going to try to do another one later today. I need to double verify the RNC's convention times. I don't want to overlap whatever they got planned, but either this evening or tomorrow, I'm definitely going to get another chat going, because there's many things I want to talk about. That DEI crap going on with the Secret Service. I didn't realize myself how pervasive this is. The amount of unprofessionalism. Our enemies overseas have to be laughing at us. You have a president shot, and you got people that are supposed to be elite individuals, and the Secret Service cannot even tote this man down the stairs. This man is 6'3", 6'4", 275 pounds, and this female agent can't pick him up to pull him down the stairs. She's not tall enough to protect his entire body. His entire upper torso and head was still exposed. It's just insane, and I'm going to call it what it is, right or wrong. So if you hit that subscribe button, that's going to be your best way to know the exact time, and I'll try to put as much notice up as I possibly can. But we have a lot to talk about. The indoctrination has to stop. You can do your part by subscribing to the channel. Make sure you share this video with your family, friends, or anyone that you know suffering the evil problem, disease of indoctrination. I always say, my friends, I want you to keep that mind free. Never give up. Until next time, I am J.R. Dukes. Thanks again, my friends.